You can't paint over my house number, Deborah. That's my curb. Her lips curled, brush still in hand. It's Cynthia, and per HOA Code 4.13, curb stenciling must match the community standard. White background, black font, no flare. Yours has a red border. I stepped forward. You do realize I poured this concrete with my dad in '96, right? That red line was his idea. It marked the edge of our flood trench. She didn't flinch. Non-compliance is subject to daily fines. I nodded slowly, then flicked my phone screen. The floodlight camera pivoted, laser-focused on her wrist where she held the HOA-issued paintbrush. Hope you waved, I said. That system's still patched through my server. Every frame's mine. I'm Noah Brenner, 39, single dad, former military police, now just trying to raise my daughter Lena in the only house that's ever felt like home. The HOA's been trying to pick this place apart like vultures on a fender bender. But what Cynthia Harrow didn't expect, I don't bluff. She may run the Silver Pines board, but I built my life on due process, recorded evidence, and patience. And today, she just picked the wrong trench to step into. Where are you watching from? Stick around. This doesn't end with a brush stroke, it ends with handcuffs. The house sits on a corner lot with a wind-leaned pecan tree shading the garage. My dad and I poured every inch of that driveway one summer, him yelling about how no man should pay another to do a job he could sweat through himself. Mom planted lilies along the west fence line. They still come up in spring, crooked as ever. She passed last October, left the house to me and Lena. It's not just property, it's her voice, sealed into these walls. Which is why Cynthia's little crusade against non-standard aesthetics hits different. I'm not just defending a paint color, I'm defending memory. First it was the mailbox, off-center by an inch, then the porch light, too warm a hue, then the violation for Lena's chalk art, visual nuisance. Each one read like a petty jab, signed with that same digital signature, C. Harrow, HOA President. I stayed civil, sent emails, asked for clarifications, even offered to repaint the mailbox if it made them sleep better. The responses? Robotic, cold, refer to code, non-compliance window, 7 days. Appeals must be filed in writing. Silver Pines was supposed to be a quiet place, a reset for me and Lena after base rotations and hospital visits. But Cynthia had other plans. She ran the board like a miniature regime, clipping wings and issuing fines with a keyboard and a plastic smile. I wasn't ready to fight yet, not until they cited us for Lena's tire swing. Said it was hung on a common use tree and posed a community liability. Lena cried for an hour when I took it down. I sat under that pecan tree after she fell asleep, stared at the curb's faded red stripe, ran my fingers along it. Dad had cut that border with a level and a pocket knife. He made me paint it twice. Red tells people something's buried under here, he'd said. Turns out he was right. There was something buried, just not a pipe. It was control. Cynthia didn't want compliance. She wanted obedience, precision, uniformity. And I don't do uniformity. The next morning, the HOA patrol car rolled by again. Dev Patel behind the wheel. Never said a word, just slowed, scribbled, and moved on. I waved. He didn't wave back. I walked Lena to school like always. She clutched my hand tighter than usual. Is Miss Cynthia mad at us? No, I told her. She's scared of people who remember things. Because here's what she didn't know. The floodlight cam didn't just record the brushstroke. It caught Cynthia saying, "I don't care whose house this was, we're phasing out all the old stuff." That phrase? It's about to be Exhibit A. The moment Cynthia saw the security camera turn toward her, she hesitated. Not for long, but long enough for me to catch it. Just a flicker of doubt, a chink in the HOA armor. By the next morning, a fresh notice was folded and taped to my door. Notice, not mailed. Violation 233. Unauthorized surveillance equipment visible from street. I just stared at it. No phone number to call. No name either. Just a generic HOA email and a time-stamped threat. Failure to remove within 72 hours may result in $100 0-cent/day fine. Lena stood next to me, brushing her teeth. Is that about the camera? Yep. But we didn't do anything wrong. Doesn't matter, I said, tapping the paper. This isn't about rules. It's about reminders. She wants us to know who's in charge. By noon, my neighbor Maria texted me. FYI, Cynthia just flagged your garbage cans too, something about placement. Sure enough, the notice was waiting in my inbox by 3 p.m. Violation 204, refuse containers visible from street outside collection window. It came with a low-res image. My trash bins, not 12 inches from the curb. They weren't even full. That night I walked the block, quiet middle-class neighborhood, manicured lawns, but if you looked close you'd see tiny yellow slips tucked into storm doors, the HOA's calling cards. Every third house had one. We weren't being protected. We were being audited. At the corner, I caught sight of Jerry Monroe, the HOA's treasurer, watering his azaleas. Retired teacher, still wore his watch like he had a bell to catch. He looked up when I passed, but didn't say a word. His hand trembled slightly as he turned the nozzle off. "Evening, Jerry." He nodded but didn't hold my gaze. "Evening, Noah." I wanted to say something, ask him what he knew, but his face said enough. The man was scared. Back home, I started documenting everything. I took date-stamped photos of the curb, the mailbox, the porch lights. I checked our bylaws. Yes, there was a clause about surveillance, but it only applied to shared property lines, not private driveways. And the garbage can? It was placed during collection hours. This wasn't enforcement. It was escalation. I posted one of the notices, just the top half, on a private neighborhood forum, captioned it with, "Curious what others think. Violation for a garbage bin that wasn't even full?" Within an hour, I had 12 comments, quiet ones, cautious, but the stories mirrored mine. "You'll be fined me for fence slats." Cynthia said my wreath was too seasonal in November. Mine was for a hose left out after rain, a hose. It wasn't just me. Still, nobody wanted to make noise. This was the kind of neighborhood where folks nodded from porches but locked their gates early. No one wanted to be next. Lena came downstairs while I was going through the HOA digital portal. "Dad?" "Yeah? Are we going to have to move?" That hit harder than I let on. I shut the laptop. "No, sweetie, this is our house. Grandma wanted us here. Remember the pecan tree?" She nodded. She said it was magic, that it kept the backyard cool even when the sun was mad. That tree kept a lot of things steady. My mom used to sit on the porch, legs curled under her, sipping sun tea and humming along to vinyls from the 60s. When she got sick, that porch became her place to breathe. And that's what Cynthia was trying to chip away at. Air. Memory. Peace. That night I walked the property with a notepad and headlamp, measured the mailbox post, checked the angle of the light bulb housing, took time-stamped photos of Lena's sidewalk art before washing it off. But while rinsing the chalk, I noticed something strange across the street, under the neighbor's motion light. A car, parked half on the sidewalk. No notice. The next morning, still no violation there. But mine? Another pink slip shoved under my doormat. Violation 225 porch, deconsistent with community standards. The discore in question? A metal sign Lena had made for me in art class. Dad's tools, Dad's rules. I didn't take it down. Instead, I framed it. I called the number listed in the footer of the bylaws. No answer. Left a voicemail, still polite, still restrained. But in my mind, something had clicked. This wasn't going to stop because I played nice. It was going to stop whenever I made it costly not to. I didn't have a plan yet, but I had resolve. Cynthia thought this was a game of letters and fines. She hadn't seen what patience looks like in uniform. The framed Dad's Tools, Dad's Rules sign was still on the porch the next morning, and so was another notice. This one slipped into the edge of the flower pot like a passive-aggressive bookmark. Violation 206, unauthorized permanent signage. I didn't touch it, just snapped a photo and filed it in a new folder I'd labeled Evidence Harrow Campaign. Lena ate cereal in silence. She pushed the spoon around, barely grazing the milk. "You still mad?" she asked. I shook my head. "Nope, just getting organized." At 3:00 p.m. sharp, I showed up to the HOA's monthly open meeting at the community center. The chairs were the same brittle fold-ups we'd used when I was a kid for 4th of July barbecues. Funny how spaces change tone depending on who's holding the mic. Cynthia Harrow was seated at the front, posture sharp enough to cut glass, hair in a sculpted bun, eyes already scanning the room like it was a chessboard. Beside her sat Dev Patel, her little rule enforcer, pretending to look neutral, and just off-center, Jerry Monroe, the treasurer, adjusting his glasses every few seconds like he was trying to disappear behind them. I sat in the second row, no need to lurk in the back. When Cynthia called the meeting to order, she did it with the smug satisfaction of a monarch. Let's keep things timely and productive, shall we? The first 15 minutes were about irrigation schedules and communal fence repairs. I waited. Then came open comments. I stood up. I have some concerns about selective enforcement. Cynthia raised a hand like I was a child in need of discipline. Please keep this civil, Mr. Brenner. I intend to, just wondering why a sign made by my daughter gets flagged as violation, but the exact same type of decor's been on my neighbor's porch for 5 months without incident. Silence. The room stiffened. Cynthia smiled without warmth. We apply all rules consistently. If something was missed, we can address it. I bet you will. Also wondering why my trash bins are getting cited during collection hours. Dev shifted in his seat. Jerry dropped his pen. Cynthia deflected. If you'd like to file a formal complaint, you're welcome to do so via the portal. I already did, 5 times. Another beat of quiet. The board members flipped through papers, trying not to meet my eye. I turned slightly. Jerry, do you recall voting on any of these fines? He looked up like I'd slapped the table. I'm not the enforcement officer, Noah. That's not what I asked. His jaw worked, but no sound came. Cynthia jumped in. The board doesn't discuss individual enforcement details during public meetings. That's when I saw it. Jerry's hand, resting on his leg, curled tightly into a fist, knuckles white, fingers trembling slightly. Not from anger, from fear. I didn't press him, not here, but I'd seen what I needed to. I nodded, sat back down. Let the silence speak for itself. When the meeting wrapped, folks milled near the coffee urn. I hung back, pretending to check my phone. Jerry came out 10 minutes later, alone, briefcase in hand. I caught him halfway to the parking lot. He flinched. Noah, look, I don't want to get involved. You already are. He sighed. You don't understand. She controls the minutes. She controls the email lists. She even rewrote the voting proxy template last year and never ran it through the rest of us. She's faking board votes? He didn't answer directly, just rubbed his temples. There are things I can't prove, but if you're looking, don't trust the online portal. Not everything's uploaded there. Then he walked off, shoulders hunched like the words had cost him blood pressure. By the time I got home, Lena was on the porch with her sketch pad, drawing a version of the tree out front. Is that Grandma's pecan? I asked. She nodded. I want to draw it for her birthday. You think she'd like it? Jean told me once it was the only tree that listened. I sat down beside her. Watched the strokes, soft, deliberate, kind. The next day, no violation came, not one. But Cynthia's car drove by. Twice. Slowed both times. I wasn't sure if she was recalculating or if she'd already drawn her next move. Either way, I had mine in motion. Starting with the HOA bylaws I'd printed the night before. Hard copies, not digital. If Jerry was right, there were things she'd left out. And I was done reading the clean version. You see it now, right? This wasn't about rules, it was about control. And Cynthia wasn't used to being questioned, but trust me, she's about to make her first real mistake. Where are you watching from? Let me know. And stick around. The next move she makes, it involves flashing lights, a badge, and a 911 call that backfires hard. 3 days passed. No notices, no emails, no phantom violations. Just the quiet hum of Cynthia's Lexus rolling past my house every morning, her silhouette frozen behind tinted glass like a hawk circling low. I stayed busy. Printed copies of HOA bylaws were spread across my dining table, highlighter marks cutting through sections like surgical incisions. The surveillance clause, misquoted. The enforcement committee, never legally formed, just appointed by Cynthia's personal email account. The deeper I dug, the more the structure fell apart. She'd built a cardboard castle and slapped a gold seal on it. On Friday morning, Lena was in the front yard, drawing hopscotch boxes in chalk. I was installing a solar motion light on the side wall. Well within code, I'd triple-checked. Cynthia's car slowed again. This time she rolled her window down halfway. "Noah," she called, her voice coated in that HOA sugar coating that barely masked the vinegar underneath. "That light isn't permitted without architectural review." I didn't even look at her. "It's solar, no wiring, section 7.9 of the bylaws." She frowned. "That section's outdated." "Strange, it's the one posted on the HOA portal and mailed out last spring." Her eyes narrowed just for a breath. She backed away without another word. But the next move wasn't hers. It came through dispatch. At 4:37 p.m., I heard the knock. 2 sharp raps on the front door, followed by a voice I knew wasn't neighborhood. "Mr. Brenner, police." I opened the door slowly. 2 uniformed officers stood on the porch, Officer Kim and his partner Davis. Both were calm but alert. "We got a report of aggressive behavior, possible threat with tools." I blinked. "Tools?" Kim nodded toward my side yard, said you were brandishing equipment, made a verbal threat toward a community representative. Let me guess, blonde hair, Lexus, has a vendetta against porch signs? He didn't answer, but the glance between him and Davis told me I wasn't wrong. "Mind if we take a quick look?" "You're welcome to. My tool belt's hanging where it always hangs. Didn't even have it on earlier." They followed me out. Lena was still inside, headphones on, watching her cartoons. I led them to the side yard. The tools were untouched, neatly lined, no weapon, no drama. "She said you lunged at her," Davis said carefully. "She slowed her car and yelled a false code violation. I quoted the rule number. I didn't even walk off the ladder." Kim tapped his radio once, but didn't speak into it. "We get calls like this sometimes, usually settle fast. You got security footage?" "Yes," I said. "And audio." I walked them to my office, pulled up the recording. The footage showed everything. Me adjusting the light bracket, her shouting from the car, my calm reply, her car pulling away. No movement toward her, no tools in hand. Kim gave a low whistle. "That's clean. You want to file a report for a false 911 call?" "Not yet," I said. "But I'd like this incident documented, on record, please." They logged it, gave me a copy of the call reference number. Before leaving, Kim turned back. "I'm not supposed to say this, but she's pulled stunts like this before, just never with someone who kept receipts." I watched them drive off, slow and steady. My hands weren't shaking, but something in my chest twisted a little. Lena looked up when I came inside. "Who were the police?" I smiled gently. "Wrong address, sweetie." She nodded, unconvinced, but didn't press. She's sharp, like her grandma. Observant. After she went to bed, I sat back on the porch with my old notebook, the one with the tree sketch she made. On the last page I wrote 4 names. Jerry Monroe, Dev Patel, Officer Kim, the bylaws. That was my triangle. And now I had proof that Cynthia's control extended beyond notices and fines. She was willing to weaponize the police. I'd kept quiet long enough. Tomorrow I'd meet with Jerry again. Not just to ask questions, to bring him a copy of the police report, and remind him what complicity really costs. Jerry didn't answer my text, not right away, but around 7 p.m. I got a single-line reply. "You still have access to your mom's HOA box?" That stopped me cold. I hadn't thought about it in years, buried somewhere in the basement under boxes of Lena's baby clothes and my dad's old fishing reels. My mom had served as secretary of the HOA 15 years ago, quietly, before Cynthia took over and turned it into a private fiefdom. The next morning, while Lena was at school, I opened the basement door and flicked the switch. Nothing. Just the soft clunk of a dead bulb. I grabbed a flashlight. Dust kicked up as I stepped on the wooden stairs. The air down there smelled like cedar and old envelopes, the kind of scent that carries memory, like smoke clings to denim. Half an hour of digging led me to a metal filing cabinet shoved behind an old treadmill. The bottom drawer was rusted shut. Took a screwdriver and some unkind language to pry it open. Inside, dozens of manila folders, typed labels, all dated. One caught my eye right away. Silver Pines Proxy Procedures, amended 2010, unratified. Unratified? That shouldn't have existed if it was passed. I flipped through. My mom's handwriting was all over the margins, notes in blue ink, arrows, circles. Proposal submitted without full board vote. Conflict, no record of signed proxy templates on file. Warned about misuse potential. At the bottom was a folded note clipped to the back cover. Rerun vote recommended, Cynthia refused, claimed emergency authority. Dev didn't push back. There it was, sealed history. Cynthia had rewritten the voting system without board ratification, and no one stopped her. I snapped photos of every page, sealed the file back, gently. Even down there, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was violating. As I turned to leave, I spotted a box I hadn't seen before, gray plastic, taped shut, no label. I cut it open. Inside, a handheld tape recorder, a stack of mini cassettes. The kind my mom used to dictate notes before typing minutes. Curiosity outweighed caution. I dusted off an old stereo and popped one in. Her voice crackled through. Meeting with Cynthia regarding surprise vote agenda. She bypassed Dev and added new clauses. I don't feel good about this. I stopped the tape. This wasn't just policy manipulation. It was documented, recorded. By my mother. I called Jerry. He picked up this time, voice low and tight. Did you find it? I did. Everything. Her notes, tapes. She knew. Silence. Then. She tried to get it reversed. She told me after a meeting. Said she thought Cynthia would dig in her heels. And she did. She was scared. Coffee mug. Well, didn't you speak up? He exhaled slowly. Because back then, I thought I could fix it from the inside. And after she got sick, I just stopped showing up. I didn't want to fight anymore. Well, it's not just you now. I know, his voice cracked. I saw the police. I saw what she did to you. I waited. I'll help you. When I hung up, I didn't feel relief. I felt a weight shift. Subtle, like something that had been jammed against a wall for years finally moved a few inches. That night, Lena curled up beside me on the porch swing. The air smelled like early summer, cut grass and pine sap. She held up her sketch pad. I added Grandma next to the tree. I looked. My mom seated in her favorite chair, drawn beside the pecan tree, book in her lap. I nodded, throat tight. She'd like that. She told me once the tree remembers everything. Is that true? I looked out at the bark, rough and strong. It remembers enough. I didn't tell her I'd found proof, or that the next step would involve legal filings, audio restoration, and digging through old HOA vote logs. But the house felt different, not less threatened, just more alive. As if Mom was saying, "You've got the truth now, use it." That night, I couldn't sleep. The basement dust still clung to my skin, even after a hot shower. The sound of my mother's voice on that cassette had burrowed somewhere beneath my ribs. Lena's sketch pad sat on the kitchen table, open to the page where she'd drawn my mom sitting under the pecan tree, her hand gently resting on the bark like it was an old friend. The detail was uncanny, the folds in her sweater, the crease in her cheek. Lena had never seen her in person, but somehow she'd gotten it right. The next cassette was labeled Minutes Draft March 2010. I slid it into the old tape deck. Cynthia brought up emergency spending again, claimed the bylaws gave her discretionary power during quorum delays. I challenged her. Dev stayed silent. She smiled, said I could file a protest, but reminded me I'd be stepping down soon anyway. The tape clicked off. Stepping down. That was the month my mother's diagnosis came back. Stage OI. Cynthia had known, had weaponized it. I rewound it, listened again. The calm in my mother's voice was surgical, but there was hurt there, too. The kind of betrayal that doesn't yell, just tightens around the chest like wire. I sat in the dark for a long time, watching the porch light flicker against the pecan's trunk. That tree had been there since the day my parents bought the house. Planted by my dad, nurtured by my mom. Lena's drawing was more than a birthday gift. It was a symbol of truth, of memory, of what Cynthia had tried to overwrite. I picked up the drawing and tucked it into a protective sleeve. By mid-morning, I was in town, standing at a copy shop with a duffel bag full of tapes and folders. The clerk raised an eyebrow. Archival copies? Something like that. He handed me a claim slip. We can digitize all of this, give you timestamps, searchable transcriptions. Might take a few days. That's fine. Just don't skip anything. When I stepped out, I checked my phone. A voicemail from Jerry. Meet me at lot 16, far side of the retention pond. After dark, come alone. Lot 16 was the end of the subdivision. Half developed, never built on. I hadn't been back there in years. I showed up at 9:03 p.m., flashlight in my pocket. The wind was sharp for early June. Clouds moved like slow bruises across the moon. Jerry was already there, hands in his coat pockets, a black folder tucked under his arm. I wasn't sure you'd come, he said. I almost didn't. He passed me the folder. These are the minutes from the vote Cynthia buried, the one that gave her full authority to rewrite enforcement language. It was supposed to be temporary. She changed the dates after your mom resigned. We'll bring it now. Because I saw Lena the other day. She waved at me, and I thought, what the hell am I protecting Cynthia for? His voice cracked. Your mom trusted me. I let her down. I opened the folder. Handwritten minutes. Typed drafts. A signature page with 3 missing lines. Cynthia's, Dev's, and one other. A name scribbled and crossed out. Who's this? Sharon Co. She was on the board for exactly 6 weeks. She refused to sign. Cynthia removed her from the HOA site the next day. Replaced her with a placeholder name? Never held a vote. And Sharon? She moved, or was pushed out. I haven't heard from her since. She might be the last thread that ties this together. He nodded. I'll help you find her. I paused. You're in, then? He looked out at the dark water. I'm tired of being quiet. On the walk back, I passed the pecan tree again. The porch light glinted off the leaves like quiet applause. I ran my hand along the bark. Rough, rooted, unchanging. Mom had warned Cynthia in ink and tape. Lena had drawn her beneath the tree before I even knew what I was looking for. And now, finally, someone besides me was ready to stand. She erased board members like they were typos, but some things, like hand-signed minutes and a child's sketch, don't vanish so easy. Where are you watching from? Because next, someone's going to break their silence, and Cynthia won't see it coming. It took 4 days and a favor from an old contact at the property records office, but we found her, Sharon Co. New address. New name, technically, Sharon Lang, remarried. She was living in a small craftsman on the east side, just outside city limits. Not in an HOA. Jerry didn't want to go, said she'd probably slam the door in his face, but I wasn't giving her that option. I knocked. Twice. No answer. I was about to leave a note when the door creaked open an inch. A chain still fastened. A single eye stared through. Yes? Sharon, my name's Noah Brenner. My mother was Camille. She served as secretary of Silver Pines before she passed. I think you knew her. Silence. A breath. I remember Camille. She didn't open the door, but her voice softened. You here because of Cynthia? Yes. I held up the folder. And because your name's been scratched off something that never should have gone through. Long pause. The chain rattled, the door opened. Inside, her living room was simple, neat. A candle burned on the coffee table, lavender and something woodsy. The blinds were half drawn. I told myself I'd never talk about that neighborhood again, she said, pouring tea into mismatched cups. I signed on thinking I'd help keep the place nice, not walk into a political playpen. You didn't sign those minutes. I refused, and 2 days later, I got a notice about an immediate vacancy due to attendance delinquency. Total lie. I was removed, replaced, and no one ever contacted me again. Did you keep anything? Emails? Letters? She sipped her tea, slow. I kept one thing. It scared me too much to throw away. From a drawer under the TV, she pulled out a white envelope. Inside was a printed agenda for that board meeting. At the bottom, handwritten in blue ink, were notes that matched the style from my mother's files. Cynthia pushing 7.3 revision under Article 11.5, no prior discussion, Dev passive, Sharon protesting. I recognized the handwriting instantly. My mom had witnessed it, documented it. Huh. She knew it wasn't legal, I said, and she documented everything, even recorded meetings. Sharon flinched at that. She did? Yes. She even caught Cynthia saying the clause didn't need a full vote if there was emergency risk of reputational harm. Sharon's laugh was dry and sharp. Cynthia always used phrases like that, sounded important but meant nothing. She's still in power, still rewriting rules. She called the cops on me for installing a light fixture. She's using her authority to intimidate families. Sharon stared at the envelope. And now you're fighting her? I nodded. She stood, walked over to the window, stared out, arms crossed, her knuckles white. I got a letter from her last year. It wasn't official, it was smug. Said something like, "Hope you're enjoying your freedom, Silver Pines is better than ever." She knew I stayed silent. She was gloating. I waited. Sharon turned back, jaw set. "You want me to go public. I want you to tell the truth. Sign a statement. Tell the board, hell, the court, what really happened." And she walked over, picked up the envelope again. I don't want to see her face. "You won't have to," I said quietly. "But the board will, and your words might be the only thing that breaks this open." A long pause. Her shoulders dropped. "I'll do it," she said. "For Camille, and for every neighbor who packed up quietly." Before I left, she handed me a photo, black and white, an old HOA meeting in a rec center. My mom in the center, smiling. Sharon on one side, Dev on the other. Cynthia standing in the background, not smiling. Calculating. "She hated that photo," Sharon said. "Your mom kept it framed." When I got home, I laid the photo under Lena's sketch of the pecan tree. One symbol of memory, one of truth. The trap was starting to take shape now. The first thing I did when I got home was pull every note, tape, and scanned copy into a folder labeled Proxy Manipulation Phase 1. Because this wasn't just a fight anymore, it was a takedown and we were doing it by the book. I knew Cynthia. She loved feeling untouchable. The mistake narcissists make is thinking no one else knows how to play the long game. That evening, I called Dev. I didn't ask him for a meeting, I told him he owed me one. We met at the back of Corner Grounds Cafe, where the chairs still creaked and the lemon bars were stale by 4 p.m. He looked exhausted, still wore his HOA polo like it was armor, but he didn't argue. "You know why I'm here," I said. He sipped his coffee, didn't meet my eyes. "I don't want to get involved." "You already are. You signed those minutes." His knuckles tapped against the table. I didn't know what she'd added until after it passed. "You knew, you just didn't speak up, and now people are being fined for potted plants and porch lights." He stared at me like he'd aged 10 years since the last board meeting. "She told me she had legal backing, that if I didn't sign, she'd hold a vote without me and mark me as absent due to emergency travel. Dev, I have the original drafts, I have the tapes, I have Sharon's statement, and I have a court-ordered path to challenge proxy abuse." He rubbed his face with both hands. "You're going legal?" "You bet I am, but first I need one more thing from you." He looked up. "I need you to meet Cynthia, record her, ask about the minutes, ask if she ever amended the voting procedure without full board consent. She'll brag." "That's risky." "No. What's risky is letting her keep destroying families while you hide behind weak coffee and I didn't knows." A beat. He looked at his phone, thumb hovering over the screen. Then, slowly, he nodded. "I'll do it. One conversation. You better be ready." "I'm already rolling." The next day, I set up a contact mic and concealed transmitter in a ballpoint pen. Standard stuff, nothing crazy. Just enough to catch every syllable. We met in my garage, old workbench cleared and schematics spread. Dev held the pen like it might explode. "Just clip it to your folder. Talk like normal. Don't lead her, just ask open questions." He nodded, silent, nervous. But beneath that nervousness, something else was starting to form. Resolve. 2 hours later, he walked into the HOA's monthly board luncheon. Cynthia greeted him with her usual fake warmth. I waited in the car, headset tuned, recorder running. Her voice came through scratchy but clear. "Dev, why do you look like a funeral director? We need to talk about the 2010 vote, the proxy clause, you remember?" A pause, then laughter. "Please, you're not about to develop a conscience, are you? Was it ever legally approved? Camille always said it wasn't." Camille, bless her, but she never understood real strategy. I did what was necessary. That clause protected us, protected the image of the board. But did we vote on it? We controlled the minutes, Dev. That was the vote. The line crackled. I tapped the recorder twice. Got it. Later that night, Dev pulled into my driveway, pale as paper. I got it, he said, handing back the pen. She's not even hiding it anymore. It never was. She just counted on everyone staying quiet. I backed up the audio 3 times, uploaded a clean copy to my encrypted drive. That's when I noticed something. A single email had popped up in my inbox from an unknown sender. Subject line, "She did this to me too." No text, just an attachment. A scanned copy of an HOA violation notice from 2011 with Sharon's name. Fined $2,500, 0 cents. For public disruption during procedural motion. I stared at it for a long time. Cynthia hadn't just manipulated the rules, she used them as weapons against anyone who asked questions. And now I had voices, proof, patterns. The trap was set. All that was left was the reveal. I didn't sleep the night after the email came in. That $2,500, 0 cents violation wasn't just a fine, it was a muzzle. Cynthia had used board authority like a bat, swinging at anyone who got too loud. By morning, I knew what needed to happen. Not a whisper campaign, not just court filings. Public exposure. Jerry and I met at the community center, the same rec hall from that black and white photo Sharon had given me. The folding chairs were still chipped, the walls still smelled like old floor wax. But this time it would be different. The upcoming HOA community engagement session was on Thursday, an open forum. No official votes, but the perfect place to let the truth breathe. Cynthia would be there, and the mic system, still the same as it had been in 2010, hardwired, with a direct aux input at the podium. I didn't need to shout, I just needed to press play. That morning, Lena walked into my office holding the framed sketch again. "Why is this always out now?" she asked, tracing the penciled pecan leaves. "Because your grandma used to sit under that tree and say, 'When the roots are strong, storms can only prune.'" She blinked. "Is that a metaphor?" "Sort of," I smiled. "It means we're not done yet." Thursday came. Jerry wore his old blue windbreaker and passed out flyers. Sharon sat 2 rows back, sunglasses on, hands tucked tight in her lap. Dev stayed near the coffee table, nervous but present. I signed in. Cynthia didn't even look up. She was at the head table, pearl earrings, pale pink lipstick, tapping notes into her tablet like the queen of damage control. The mic went live at 6:15 p.m. The room wasn't packed, but it didn't need to be, just enough neighbors to hear what had been hidden. Cynthia started her usual soft speech. "It's been a challenging year, but we've upheld the values of Silver Pines." I waited until the claps faded. Then I stood. "I have a submission," I said. "Board irregularities, bylaw manipulation, false fines." She blinked. "Noah, this is not..." I walked to the mic, plugged in my recorder, no preamble, no threats, just a slow turn of the volume dial. And her voice filled the room. Camille, bless her, but she never understood real strategy. That clause protected us, protected the image of the board. We controlled the minutes, Dev. That was the vote. Dead silence. One of the older residents squinted. "Is that you, Cynthia?" She stood. "That's taken out of context. This is a..." "Unedited recording," I interrupted, gathered lawfully, backed by archival tapes, original drafts, and one board member who refused to lie. Dev stepped forward. Sharon removed her sunglasses. The silence turned heavier. Not loud, just full. Cynthia's nostrils flared. "This is slander. You'll regret this." "No, I won't," I said, "because unlike your motions, mine came with signatures." I dropped a copy of Sharon's sworn statement on the table. A second later, Jerry handed out flyers to the rest of the audience. QR codes linked to scanned documents, audio files, digital timestamps. "Feel free to verify," I said. "This isn't personal vengeance, it's institutional rot." Cynthia grabbed her bag, but the door was already crowded with residents, murmuring, flipping through their phones. Dev finally spoke, voice steady. "I propose an emergency review of all board decisions made since March 2010, starting with Clause 7.3. Someone clapped. Not loud, just one person, then two. Cynthia paused in the doorway, eyes like stone. "You've made a mistake," she hissed at me. I shrugged. Maybe, but at least I didn't erase anyone to feel powerful. She left, and for the first time in years, the community center didn't feel like hers. She'd ruled by silence, but tonight her voice became the evidence, and when power flips mid-sentence, that's when the real story begins. "Where are you watching from? Because next she tries to strike back and we're already 3 moves ahead." Cynthia didn't take the loss lying down. Less than 24 hours after the recording played, I got an envelope shoved into my mailbox. No stamp, no return address. Inside was a printed notice from the HOA. Violation of Ordinance 14, unauthorized use of audio equipment at HOA event. Fine, $1,200, 0 cents. Due in 10 days. The absurdity hit me so hard I actually laughed. She was trying to fight facts with paperwork. I brought it inside and tossed it on the table. Lena looked over and raised an eyebrow. "That real?" "Yeah," I said, flipping it open again. "Apparently using the community center's mic to reveal criminal behavior is unlawful." She smirked. "So, we frame it and hang it in the garage?" "Better, we take it to the Attorney General." I'd already contacted the local news tip line the night before, but now I was going bigger. My next call was to Andrea Singh, a state-level HOA policy advocate. We'd met once at a legal workshop. I'd told her about my mother. She remembered me. "Cynthia Marlowe," she repeated on the phone. "She's on our internal list. Several neighborhoods have flagged her behavior. You say you have recordings?" "Recordings, signed statements, and now a retaliatory fine, on paper." There was a long pause. "We've been waiting for a case with teeth," she said. "Send it all over, today." I did, every doc, every clip, every email I could dig up. By the time the afternoon rolled around, a post went up in the Silver Pines Facebook group, rushing to whom it may concern. Recent misinformation has been spread regarding the legality of past board votes. The HOA remains fully compliant with local governance procedures. Any accusations are being handled through formal legal channels. Board Chair Cynthia Marlowe. But the likes on her posts? Barely 10. The comments were worse. "Didn't sound legal on the recording, Cynthia. You fined a woman for speaking during a meeting." My lights got flagged, but someone down the street painted their whole garage neon green and nothing happened. And buried near the bottom was Sharon's name, just a quiet, "Let the truth keep speaking." It rattled her. I knew it did, because that evening a black SUV rolled slowly past my driveway. Twice. The third time it stopped. She didn't get out. Just sat there, behind the wheel, window cracked, sunglasses on even though the sun had dipped behind the pecan tree. I walked out with a glass of iced tea and didn't say a word, just stood in the driveway and sipped. She drove off. Jerry called that night, chuckling. "You're living rent-free in her skull now." "Correction," I said. "I own the lot next to hers, and she still thinks she's the landlord." But the funny part, Cynthia's scare tactics were backfiring. By Friday, 4 more neighbors stepped forward with archived HOA fines, all strangely backdated, all signed in the same looping cursive. I compared them side by side. Identical language, identical phrasing. Violation of aesthetic cohesion standards. Reach of passive compliance clause. Passive compliance? That wasn't even real code, just a Cynthia original. Lena helped me lay them out across the kitchen table, forming a timeline of intimidation. "You're not just fixing a problem," she said. "You're unspooling a whole era." That stuck with me, because it wasn't about one woman, or one board, or one property line. It was about everyone who got bullied into silence with empty legalese and fake authority. About every dad who had to take down a porch swing, every widow fined for a flag too big, every kid told they couldn't chalk the sidewalk. We weren't cleaning house. We were scrubbing down the rot. And Cynthia, she was finally showing cracks, because when people lose control, they either double down or crumble. She was doing both. It started with a folding chair. That same creaky metal seat I'd sat in during the first meeting, the one where Cynthia waved her clipboard like it was a royal decree. This time, I slid it to the front row. Across the room, she was already seated at the board's table, wearing a navy suit now, no pink, hair pulled tight, mouth tight. She saw me and flinched, not visibly to the crowd, but enough. Jerry leaned in behind me. "News trucks out front." "Good." He tapped my shoulder. "Make it count." This wasn't an HOA meeting, not technically. It was a public review hearing, called by the State HOA Compliance Committee. The Attorney General's office had filed a formal inquiry based on multiple verified complaints of procedural abuse. Translation, we hit critical mass. The room was packed. Folding chairs lined the back wall. Sharon sat between Lena and Dev. Andrea Singh stood by the projector with a slim binder in her hand, labeled Exhibit C, Timeline of Proxy Manipulation. A state official, a sharp-eyed man named Mr. Kalin, stepped to the podium. Today's hearing concerns procedural misconduct within Silver Pines HOA board, specifically motions passed under questionable conditions and financial fines issued without due process. He turned to Cynthia. "Mrs. Marlowe, do you have an opening statement?" She stood, cleared her throat. "All actions taken by the board were for the good of the community. If certain procedures weren't followed to the letter, it was because urgency and member satisfaction required." "Were they legal?" Kalin cut in. She blinked. "I believe they were consistent with our charter." Andrea stepped up, calm, precise, and lethal. She opened her binder and passed copies to the board, the panel, and finally to me. "Page 6, she said. Motion 7.3 from March 2010. No quorum. No recorded vote. 3 board members present, 1 absent. Yet, this motion allowed proxies to be used without written consent from homeowners." Kalin nodded slowly. "Violation of State HOA Regulation 142.6. Cynthia's lips moved, but no sound came out. Andrea continued, "We also have audio of Mrs. Marlowe stating, quote, 'We controlled the minutes. That was the vote.'" Gasps scattered across the crowd. I leaned forward. "Would you like to hear the clip again?" Kalin didn't respond, just made a note. Cynthia tried to pivot. "This is character assassination. A handful of troublemakers want to turn a respected—" "Respect is earned," Dev said, loud enough for the whole room. She turned toward him. "You? After all I've done to help your reputation?" "No," he interrupted. "All you ever did was make us scared to speak. You twisted silence into compliance." Andrea flipped a page. Fines levied under Clause 14C, a clause which, by the way, does not exist in the official charter. Cynthia stammered. "It was a placeholder for internal review." "It was fraud," Kalin said flatly. "You've collected over $40,000, 0 cents in fabricated fines across 7 years. That money will be audited and, if necessary, returned." That hit like thunder. Cynthia sat down. And then I stood. I didn't plan to speak, but I couldn't sit quiet either. "My name is Noah Ridge. My mother was Camille Ridge, a founding homeowner. She helped build Silver Pines with her own hands. I was raised here. I've lived through every fake violation, every sudden fine, every time someone got told that's just the way it is." I turned toward Cynthia. "You didn't just break rules, you weaponized them against the people who trusted you." Her eyes narrowed, but she didn't speak. I stepped back. That was enough. Kalin folded his notes. "This panel finds substantial evidence of abuse of power, illegal amendments, and coercive fines. Effective immediately, all board operations will be suspended pending formal re-election under state oversight." The room exploded into murmurs, then applause. And Cynthia? She didn't look angry. She looked empty. Like she'd spent so long faking control she forgot what real consequence felt like. Security escorted her out. And just like that, the crown she'd never earned vanished, with her heels clicking down the hall. It was 3 weeks later when we held the new vote. On the lawn, under the pecan tree. No polished table, no velvet ropes, just a folding booth borrowed from the local middle school, a community potluck, and a clipboard passed from hand to hand. No cameras, no posturing, just neighbors doing what they were always meant to do, speak for themselves. Dev was elected interim treasurer, Jerry, chair. Sharon declined any official role but agreed to serve as the new records liaison. My handwriting's still sharper than your keyboard, she teased, and she wasn't wrong. And me? I didn't run for anything. Didn't need to. What I'd come to restore wasn't control. It was clarity, accountability, the kind of order that doesn't need a gavel to be real. Later that evening, I walked Lena back down the path behind our house, past the wildflower beds, down the slope toward the creek, where the old pecan tree leaned slightly like it always had, the same spot Mom used to sit with her journal, barefoot in the grass. Lena held the framed sketch of the tree again. "You gonna finally hang this?" she asked. I nodded, right above the fireplace, where people can see what matters. She paused. "You think Cynthia'll come back?" I looked up at the branches. Wind rattled a few husks free, pecans landing soft in the brush. "She already did what she came for," I said. "What happens next, that's up to us." We'd gone back through the files, restored the real bylaws, confirmed the actual voting records. Everything that had been altered under Cynthia's term was being undone, piece by piece. But it wasn't just paperwork that needed fixing. One neighbor, Rosa, stopped me midweek by her fence. "My son, he used to draw chalk on the sidewalk. Cynthia fined us $50 for it back in 18. He stopped after that." I blinked. "He still draw?" She smiled faintly. "Hasn't touched a crayon in 3 years. But last night, after the vote, he did a mural, said the rules are different now." It hit harder than I expected. The fines, the threats, the clipped warnings, they didn't just take money, they stole space. Space to be seen, space to belong. And getting that back, that was the real win. That Saturday, I took the old wooden sign Mom had carved, faded but still legible, and nailed it back up at the entrance trail. "Welcome to Silver Pines, strong roots, open sky." Simple, honest, no citations required. Later that afternoon, I found Dev cleaning up the storage shed near the rec center. Inside, beneath a stack of weathered banners and rusted bike locks, he pulled out an old folder. Inside were community photos from the neighborhood's first year. There was one of my mom, standing under the pecan tree, laughing. Mud on her jeans, hammer in her hand. "You keeping this?" he asked. I took the photo and studied it like it was something sacred. "I'm keeping all of it," I said. That evening I sat on the porch with Sharon and Jerry. Lena was inside, painting. Dev joined us with a six-pack. No grand speeches, no declarations, just quiet. Until Sharon raised her glass and said, "To the ones who built it right and the ones who dared to rebuild it." We clinked bottles. And for the first time in a long time, Silver Pines felt like a neighborhood again, not a kingdom ruled by fear, but a place held together by people who gave a damn. "You don't have to win power to win back dignity," I said, more to myself than anyone else. "Sometimes all it takes is one person refusing to fold." Have you ever gone head-to-head with an overreaching HOA? What would you have done in my shoes? Drop your story or your city in the comments. Let's make sure the next person knows they're not fighting alone.